So, as Vic so graciously mentioned, my name is Rachel Micay. I am a rep in the dental industry and I'm based here in Toronto, Ontario. And if you are on Instagram, follow me. My handle is at the Dental Whisperer. And today I'm going to be talking to you about how to jumpstart your dental career using the power of social media. Just 1 second. So I want to start by introducing you to the world of social media in dentistry. For those of you who are not currently using social media in any capacity, I want to talk about how to best establish yourself on these platforms. And for those of you who are already on social media or even promoting yourself as a dentist on social media, I want to talk about how to optimize the use of these platforms for your specific dental goals. We're going to go through some of the do's and don'ts of social media in dentistry. And then I want to leave you with some additional resources that you can take beyond today's lecture to hopefully help inspire and guide you as you continue to take advantage of these incredible platforms. So I had a very non-linear journey into the world of dentistry. I actually started as a competitive figure skater, and while you can't see today because we're over Zoom, I'm very tall, which is really not favorable for a sport like that. So after a certain point, I decided instead to focus on education. So I went to the University of Toronto, where I pursued a bachelor's degree in kinesiology. And during this time, I got very involved in research in the areas of concussion as well as human biomechanics. And I had the opportunity to take some of that concussion research into a master's program. So I spent a few years as an academic and I published and presented various studies, both on the topic of biomechanics and human brain injury. And all the while, I actually worked for the Toronto Maple Leafs as a member of and eventually captain of the Blue Crew. So if there's any Leafs fans who went to a lot of games between 2014 and 2018, we probably crossed paths already. So after I finished my master's, given my background in both the sciences and also as a brand ambassador for global brands in major industries, it made a lot of sense to go into a sales role in a healthcare company. So I was fortunate enough to be hired by a company called Ivoclar Vivadent, and most of you are probably familiar with Ivoclar. It's a global manufacturer of highly aesthetic dental materials, both for dental offices and dental labs. And we're best known for our material called Emax, which is a glass ceramic made of lithium disilicate, which has over 90% market share of all indirect restoratives. So I got this job with Ivoclar exactly 18 months ago, as Vic mentioned, and I was faced with a very unique challenge, which was that I was covering a gigantic geographical territory, covering all of Eastern and Northern Ontario, which is about 1,400 square kilometers, with literally thousands of dental offices between that. So I realized quite quickly I would have to be very creative in ways to increase my exposure and reach beyond just going to every single dental office, because there just simply wasn't enough time for that. And while I was kind of thinking of ways that I could be a little bit more effective and creative, I was exposed to some incredible clinicians within my territory in the city of Toronto. For example, Dr. Goth Siu, who's a Toronto-based prosthodontist, and he actually spoke earlier in the Dental Fast Track series. And as you can see, Dr. Goth has over 50,000 followers on Instagram. And I really credit him with being the pioneer of social media marketing in dentistry here in Canada. And what he's done, which is so incredible, is as a specialist, he's built an entire practice of referrals through Instagram, and he's able to target patients directly as well through Instagram. So after seeing him, and also being exposed to people like Dr. Nada Albatish, who was also a speaker here with Dental Fast Track, who's a Newmarket-based general dentist with over 16,000 followers. She's also a speaker for the Clinical Mastery Group, which is a restorative occlusion course. And seeing how effectively she's built her practice through social media, it kind of gave me the idea, maybe I should be more effectively utilizing these from a business perspective as well. And beyond what I was exposed to here in Canada, there's a huge group of dentists, both within North America and globally, who are very prolific on social media. And probably the number one celebrity on social media in dentistry is Dr. Michael Appa, who is a graduate of the NYU School of Dentistry. And he has offices now in New York City, in LA, and Dubai. And he's a celebrity dentist. He's a lecturer. He provides a ton of education. And he's built so much of what he's accomplished through Instagram. And he's actually branched out beyond dentistry into other areas, such as cosmetics. He has products that are being used by some of the biggest influencers in the beauty industry on Instagram, such such as Kim Kardashian. So he's a really great example of how you can leverage social media to really grow your business. So that kind of inspired me, that I realized I need to be on social media. So I started an Instagram account. And as I mentioned previously, I made the handle The Dental Whisperer. I chose that because it was kind of funny and humorous and exciting. And I thought it would be something that would capture attention, but also explain kind of what I do and what I'm all about, which is dentistry. So at first, it was really just a way to connect and educate my local dentists within my territory about Ivoclar Vivadent. But what's interesting is that it really expanded and grew to something that I never anticipated it would, where I began getting connected to dentists not only across Canada, but North America and globally. And so when I would go to these meetings to represent Ivoclar, I started getting noticed and recognized through my social media. And a lot of dentists within Ontario would start reaching out to me, asking me to come into their offices and talk to them about products, but also help coach them on how they can start using social media, in particular Instagram, to more effectively market themselves as dentists and connect with the broader dental community. So hopefully today I'll be able to share some of the knowledge that I've gained over these past, really it's been 12 months that I've been on social media, and that I tried to instill with some of the doctors that I work with. And keep in mind, like Vic said, I'm still new to this, fairly new to this, and I've been really privileged to be able to learn from people like Dr. Goth and Dr. Nada and others. So I'm going to go through quite a few examples, and I would encourage you to follow everybody and continue to reach out both to myself and everybody that I mention if you have any further questions. So just some interesting statistics about social media and the modern world. There are 3.2 billion social media users globally, which make up about 42% of the human population. An average of 2 hours and 22 minutes per day are spent on social media and messaging apps, which now, given the COVID crisis, everybody's at home and on their phones even more than ever. I would wonder how these numbers have increased since this was published. And as of 2019, there are 500 million daily active Instagram stories worldwide that are uploaded every single day, versus just 150 million in 2017. Now, when we break down the percentage of social media users by generation, perhaps unsurprisingly, 90.4% of millennials are active on social media. And myself, I'm 27, so I would fall into the millennial category. We see that 77.5% of Generation Xers are active on social media, and nearly half of baby boomers now are active on social media. So clearly, there's a huge amount of attention being paid on these platforms that we can all take advantage of to build up our dental practices. Just a second, it's frozen. Now, when we look at Generation Z behavior on social media, and I'll just preface myself by saying Generation Z is defined generally as those who are born after the year 1996. So these are 16 to 24-year-olds today. And what we notice about their social media behaviors is that they gravitate towards highly visual platforms such as Instagram, YouTube, and Snapchat. And they're starting to use less of the text-heavy platforms such as Facebook and TikTok and Twitter. But one of the platforms on here that I think has tremendous application to dentistry and is going to become increasingly more popular moving forward is TikTok. So for those of you watching who are thinking about getting more active on social media, or maybe who are using certain platforms already, I would encourage you to also get into TikTok early and start getting comfortable with it and using it and building your network there. Now, social media is not a fad. It's a fundamental shift in the way that we communicate. It's not going anywhere. It's here to stay. And so we need to accept it and embrace it and join the conversation so that we can continue to stay relevant and grow both professionally from an education perspective and also build our networks within the dental community. Now, somebody who I think is really the global authority on social media marketing is Gary Vaynerchuk. So he's an American entrepreneur, and he was an early investor in a lot of these social media platforms, including Twitter, Facebook, and Instagram. You can follow him on Instagram at GaryVee. And I would encourage everybody to pick up his book, Crushing It. So this is a really helpful book that I personally learned a lot from. And it's all about how entrepreneurs can build their businesses through social media and how powerful the influence has become. He also has a podcast called The Gary Vee Audio Experience, where he uploads daily, really helpful content on the topic of social media. And something that Gary Vaynerchuk says is the biggest thing I can tell you is that you have to make as much content as possible. So that means you need to be posting consistently a lot, but also across as many platforms as possible in order to stay in those conversations. Because as we mentioned already, this is a fundamental shift in communication. It's about keeping the conversation going and broadening it. However, for the purposes of today, I'm really going to focus on Instagram. One thing that I will say, whatever you post on Instagram can be very easily shared to Facebook or to LinkedIn. If you're posting on TikTok, you can also share it to Instagram. So posting content at scale across platforms is not as scary as it seems. And a lot of the concepts for Instagram are going to be applicable to other platforms as well. So just keep that in mind. The thing that I like about Instagram for dentistry is that it's a highly visual profession. So the visual nature of Instagram is a really nice match for social media in dentistry. There's also a huge community of dentists on Instagram that already exist. So you can already tap into that existing infrastructure. And lastly, Instagram is a really powerful tool for influencing human behavior. So for example, Instagram can generate over 4 times more interactions compared to Facebook. 83% of Instagrammers say that they discover new products and services on Instagram, including dentists. And Instagram helps 80% of its users decide whether or not to buy a particular product or service. And as I mentioned, there is a huge community that exists on Instagram. It's really a platform that's ideally suited for facilitating meaningful relationships and business interactions in real life. So when used effectively, it can lead to tons of really powerful and meaningful and, quite honestly, lucrative relationships. So when we talk about the community of dentists on Instagram, there's actually a group called Influencer Dentistry, or the Dental Influencers Alliance. And this is started by a handful of American dentists from across the country who met through Instagram, and they started commenting on each other's posts and DMing each other and communicating. And it really grew to this really large platform that became a hub for peer-to-peer mentorship and education and idea sharing. So it's now a global movement. I follow it. I would encourage everybody else to follow at Influence Dentistry. And they actually have an annual meeting called DIA, so Dental Influencers Alliance. And so I actually had the opportunity to attend the meeting this past year, which was in December of 2019. There were over 500 people from around the world. It was really incredible, many of whom I know are on the call today. And we had a really strong Canadian presence. They actually had Dr. John Coys as the keynote speaker. And the most amazing thing is that none of this would have happened had the relationships not been made initially on Instagram. So it just goes to show the power of these platforms. Now that we understand the importance of social media and why we need to be on it, let's talk about how to actually get started and optimize your social media presence. The number one thing that I always say to everybody in dentistry is you need to overcome your social media anxiety. This is the biggest barrier that I hear from dentists who either don't want to be on social media at all, or who might not be comfortable promoting themselves as a dentist on social media, as opposed to just having a general profile just for their family and friends. They're often afraid of being negatively perceived. They may be afraid that they might be criticized if they post their work. But it's important to realize that everybody has these fears. And like we already said earlier, if you're not part of this conversation and this fundamental shift in communication styles, you're really missing out on important opportunities to learn and grow your practice. So the only thing I can say in response to this is you just kind of got to get over yourself and get over that fear, and realize that as you start to post more regularly, you're going to become more comfortable. You're going to build a support system of other users who are going to be there to give you positive feedback and interactions. And the more you do this, the more those fears will start to slowly go away. So just dive in head first. Realize that social media is a tool for communication. Unlike any other tool for communication, the only difference here is that you're going to have a broader reach and that it might be more permanent. But the permanence is actually a good thing in my mind, because it's documentation of what you do, what you're all about, your work, that lives forever as a library that can then be viewed over and over again. So when used effectively, it can be incredibly powerful. Now, there seems to also be this fear about social media in that people feel like they need to put their perfect best selves out all the time, and they are afraid if they show maybe a flaw or if they're vulnerable in some way, it's going to reflect poorly on them. But it's actually quite the opposite. There's a tremendous amount of power in being real and authentic and talking about those difficult moments in our lives, because it allows you to connect even more with your target audience. And so somebody that I think has demonstrated this beautifully in the dental world is Dr. Kartika Sarvendran. So she is a Richmond Hill-based general dentist. She's very active on social media. She posts a ton of content. And I remember about 6 months ago, she posted a series of posts about her experience going through the examination boards as a foreign trained dentist, getting her equivalencies in Canada, while also being a young mother to several children and going through pregnancy. So I loved it. This was really a powerful example of being real and how that can actually help you further your interaction, because it provides valuable content for the world that people can really connect with. So I would encourage everybody to not be afraid to talk about maybe darker or more difficult moments in your life, because it only shows that you've come so much further, and it will really allow you to connect more powerfully with your target audience. I know that there's a lot of dental students and recent grads as well here today. So for some of you, you might feel a little bit intimidated looking at people like Dr. Goth and Dr. Nada or Dr. Sarvendran, who've been practicing for quite a few years and have a tremendous amount of cases and content to show of their dentistry. But at this stage of your career, you need to realize that nobody expects you to be an expert and to have these incredible cases and full mouth rehabs to be posting. So instead, I would encourage you to make it about the process of getting to where you are today. Talk about your journey through dental school and now your journey of trying to find an associateship and learning. And somebody who I think is doing a good job of this is Dr. Nakul Ratra at DDS Nakul. So he is a Mississauga-based general dentist. He's been practicing just for a few years. I believe he began in 2016. And what I like about his content is that he shows the process that he's going through to learn and grow and build his clinical skill set, both in photography and other clinical procedures in dentistry, such as composite bonding or veneers. So what this does is it shows prospective patients how passionate you are about dentistry, how committed you are to furthering yourself and building your education. Another thing that I hear from a lot of young dentists is that they understand the power of social media and the importance of it, but they want to wait until they build their own practice, and then they want to establish their social media presence to promote that. But I think it's a really big mistake to look at it that way. You should really be building your social media presence first before you delve into the whole world of practice ownership. And really the best example that I can think of for this is Dr. Jason Adinata, your tooth doctor, who spoke earlier in this series as well. So Jason works at various offices in the city of Toronto under this satellite brand of 416 Dentistry. So he's built an incredible presence for himself online, where he's really recognized by the quality of his photography, videography, and clinical dentistry. And he's also built a logo and just a general aesthetic that he can be identified as. So this is going to be really powerful for him to continue communicating with patients and promoting himself to prospective patients. And if and when he does take that leap to practice ownership in the future, so much of the legwork of his marketing and branding has already been accomplished. And as we talked about earlier, this is documented, it's archived, so he can continue to go back and draw from this as he builds his own dental practice. Jason's even built his own lifestyle brand of clothing items, which is incredible. It's at Shop 416. So this just goes to further show the power of branding and what you can do to grow your business, not even within dentistry, but beyond. And to all the dental students here who are now going to be entering the job market, I would also encourage you to look at the social media anxiety that we know exists in a lot of principal dentists as something that's favorable as you enter the job market. Knowing that a lot of these people that would be your potential boss don't really understand social media, they don't know how to use it, they might be afraid of it. That can be something that you can use to your benefit as you market yourself on the job market. You can say to the doctor, I'm skilled in social media marketing. I understand how to do it. And I can use social media to promote you and the office. And that will be a huge asset in your resume as well. So the second thing that I always advise is to know your audience, because this is going to dictate the type of content that you need to create and curate. So there's no right or wrong answer when it comes to your target audience. For many people, that's going to be the general population as prospective patients. But for other dentists on Instagram, it can be other dentists. If, for example, you're a specialist, you might be trying to target general dentists in your area to drive referrals in your direction. Other accounts are simply there for education and peer-to-peer sharing and mentorship. So before you try to get started, you need to identify your target audience and then curate your content accordingly. So, for example, somebody who I think is doing a really good job of targeting patients through social media is Dr. Gordon Chi, who Vic mentioned in the introduction, who was also a speaker earlier in this series. So you can follow him on Instagram at Aesthetic Dental Studio. And what Gordon does is a lot of cosmetic work, so a lot of veneers, composite bonding, and he's also a very accomplished photographer. So the type of patients that he's really targeting are people who want to have these highly aesthetic smile makeovers. So he posts beautiful photos of his dentistry, his photography that are very colorful and warm and exciting and bright and would really attract people within that demographic to look into his page further. And something else that he does, which I would encourage anybody who's trying to target prospective patients, is in the bio of his page, as you can see on the left, he has his name, he has his office name, the number, the website, and the address. So he makes it very easy for prospective patients to find him through social media. Now, as I mentioned, there's going to be other people on social media in the dental world who are going to be targeting their dental peers for perhaps referrals or education purposes. So somebody who does that very effectively in the city of Toronto and beyond really is Dr. Alan Aptekar. So he is a Toronto-based general dentist by background, but he exclusively practices in dental implants, and he works at various offices as kind of a mobile practitioner. And he's big on the education circuit. He's a key opinion leader for a number of dental implant companies, and he has a significant following now on social media. So his work, as you can see, is incredible. He's also an incredible photographer. But keep in mind that this type of content is going to have a very different response from a dental audience compared to a general population audience. If somebody from a layperson, for example, who has no background or understanding of dentistry, who may be afraid of bleeding gums and missing teeth, this can be perhaps off-putting to them and make them fear the dentist even more. So if you want to post this type of content, I'm all for it. I think it's amazing. However, just keep in mind who it is that you're trying to attract with this type of content. If you want to delve a little bit deeper into the dental world, there may be a specific demographic in dentistry that you're targeting, such as women. So for that, I would give the example of Dr. Effie Habshaw, who's a Toronto prosthodontist and the creator of the Women in Dentistry organization, who's really come a long way in the last few months to effectively use social media to target her target audience, which is, as I mentioned, women in dentistry. So she does that by using content that's going to really appeal to that audience and provide them with valuable information about work-life balance and resources and courses that she's running. So again, identify who it is that you're targeting and then create your content accordingly. There's also a number of people in the dental world who are targeting students as their demographic. So an example of that is Dr. Jordan Brown, who's a recent graduate from the University of Michigan School of Dentistry. So his target audience are his fellow dental students and pre-dental students. So it's really a motivational type of page where he's providing them with information and motivational kind of content to help them get into dental school and get through dental school and answer questions. And so for some of you watching, you might look at this and think, well, that's great. He's got over 13,000 followers, but how's that actually going to translate into business for him now that he's entering the job market? And to them, I would go back to what I said earlier. He would be very desirable as a prospective associate at any dental office, showing how accomplished and proficient he is in social media marketing. So he could go to a prospective principal dentist and say, look at what I've been able to do for myself just through dental school. So imagine what I can do for you and for this practice to promote it using social media if you were to hire me. And it's very easy to then shift that skill set that he's developed to a different target audience moving forward, should he want to do that in the future. Now, there's some people who have more of a mixed audience where they might be targeting their fellow dentists, students, and members of the general population as prospective patients. So somebody who does this very well is Dr. Derek Rito at Van City Dentist. So he's a recent grad himself. I believe he graduated in 2018. As you can see, he has a very significant following and presence on social media, and he's posting like very mixed content where he shows some of his dentistry, smile makeover works, his restorations, and then also personal content. He talks about his journey to get through dental school rather, but also his master's in London that he's currently doing. So if you are going to post mixed content, look at the type of content that he's posting. There's no blood. It's all pretty easy to digest, even for a lay person who's not from dentistry. It's nothing that's going to freak them out necessarily. And what he also does that I really like is he shows his face both in the dental office and outside of the dental office, which makes him more relatable. It humanizes him, and it might compel somebody off the street who's looking for a new dentist to go to this as opposed to any other dental office, because it's not just a dentist, it's a human being. And that might make them feel more comfortable. It might make them feel that he might be more easy to relate to than any other dentist they've been to in the past. So again, if we're looking at the photo on the left, which is a handful of extracted teeth on doing a tooth slam, as they call it on Instagram, versus the photo on the right of beautiful veneers and photography, these are really meant for very different audiences. And it's not right or wrong. I'm not going to say one is better than the other. They're both really compelling photographs, in my opinion. But the one on the left is obviously more geared towards the surgical crowd on Instagram in the dental world versus the picture on the right, which might be more compelling to get a patient to come into your office to get veneer work done. On Instagram too, I often see a lot of these before and after smiles. And so it's incredible work. It's a great platform to showcase your clinical skill set. But again, I always ask, what are you trying to achieve? Are you trying to get a patient through the door? And if so, are you doing it in the best way to get that done? So if we look at the picture on the left, you can see the missing tooth. It's very close up. It might be a little bit off-putting and scary to certain people in the general population who maybe have a fear of the dentist, versus the photo on the right where we see it's a little bit of a less gruesome before photo, but more importantly, we see the whole face of the patient and we can see how their smile actually changes as a result of the work that they had done. So by seeing the full face and having that emotional response, I would imagine that it's more likely that you're going to elicit a similar emotional response to somebody who's on Instagram looking at your picture, who may then be compelled to take action and actually book an appointment at your office instead of just looking and scrolling through, and actually take action. So again, think about what you're trying to achieve, who you're trying to target, and then build your content accordingly. Now, when it comes to your target audience, you have to use hashtags to try to manipulate the Instagram algorithm to drive as much traffic to your page from your target audience. So as we know, a hashtag is a word or a phrase preceded by the hash or pound sign on a specific topic. So when we look at a picture of, hold on, I think I'm just frozen again. Just a second. Sorry.
No problem at all. All you got to do is just go back to share your screen.
Yeah, I just need to, I think it shut down.
No problem.
Just a sec, guys. Sorry about that.
While we have everybody on, we'll just might as well make a couple of quick announcements. So tonight at 6 p.m., we'll be welcoming Dr. Julie Boudreau to discuss the introduction to magic of soft tissue lasers in dentistry. And tomorrow, June 27th, starting at 11 a.m., we will be welcoming Dr. Hassan Mustafa, who will be discussing, after 20 years of practice, what I would have done differently. Followed by Dr. Mona Patel, who will be discussing, you earned the degree, now what? Tips on utilizing digital dentistry to build your brand. Once again, it's dtacademy.ca. And as always, the password is track20. Rachel, are you good to go?
Yeah, I'm good to go.
All right.
Can you see me?
You just have to share your screen. We don't see it yet.
Oh, you haven't seen the screen yet? Okay, just a second, sorry. Okay, Can we see
You're
it
good to
now?
go. Yep, you're good to go.
Okay. So on the topic of hashtags, here's an example of Dr. Goth CU, who, as we talked about already, he's a Toronto-based prosthodontist in the Yorkville neighborhood of Toronto. So he's going to be targeting fellow dentists as a source of referrals, but also prospective patients who might want to get veneer work done or any other level of high level cosmetic dentistry within the Yorkville area of Toronto. So when we look at the type of hashtags that he has, they're mostly geared around aesthetic dentistry, veneers, the city of Toronto, or the neighborhood of Yorkville. So he's targeting geographically and based on the type of content that he's posting and the type of prospective patients that he's trying to get. When we look at an example from Dr. Gordon Chi, who's based in Calgary, he's going to have hashtags about Calgary to try to manipulate the Instagram algorithm to drive people in the city of Calgary towards his content. So as you can see, he has Calgary fashion, Calgary living. He's also a photographer, and that's a big part of his dentistry. So he has things about photography, studio photography, dental photography. And then you'll notice as well, he has some hashtags with Spanish words like dentistas or odontología. So it's important to know there's a huge population of South American dentists in the aesthetic space from Brazil and Argentina and Colombia who are very active on social media. So by using those specific hashtags, he might be able to drive traffic from that demographic towards his page as well. A final example, this is Dr. Karen Mann. So she's a general dentist in the downtown Toronto area who's recently become very active on social media, and she's doing an amazing job. So this is a composite restoration that she did. So when we look at the hashtags that she's using, a lot of them have to do with the city of Toronto. So she has Toronto dentist, Toronto Invisalign, and she talks about veneers, cosmetic dentistries, dental implants, smile makeover. So try to use as many hashtags as you can that are going to be based on the type of dentistry that you're doing, your geographical location, and maybe others that are connected to overall aesthetic procedures. So as you can see, she has Invisalign, filler, Juvederm, Botox, in addition to cosmetic dentistry and cosmetic dentist and others. It's important to also use the geotag feature, which allows you to put your actual location. So this can be a city like Toronto, Ontario, as we see on the left, or you can put your actual practice and create a geotag for that specifically. So All Smiles Dental Center is the office owned by Dr. Nada Albatish. And by using the geotag, you can click on the geotag and there's a whole library of images based on your specific office. So it's easy for prospective patients to scroll through that and kind of know what to expect before they even walk through the door, which can also be very powerful for driving growth for the practice. Now, it's really important to develop your brand. And in my mind, what this means is it's about finding what makes you unique based on your individual interests, characteristics, and personality. So this is what's going to make you stand out from every other dentist in your area who's going to be using the exact same hashtags, more than likely, the same geotags. So this is what makes you unique and makes you stand out and grow differently. So for this, it's really important to use your creativity, use your humor, use your aesthetics, and draw on your individual story, journey, and interests. So somebody who does a really great job of this in dentistry on Instagram is Dr. Stephanie Tran. So she's a New York City-based endodontist. Her Instagram handle is at Her Holiness the Pulp. So obviously there's a lot of humor, it's fun, it's creative. And what I like as well is that she shows a lot of her clinical dentistry, but also she has her face very visible. So it makes her identifiable and recognizable to prospective patients and other people in the industry. There's also the Bloody Tooth Guy, which some of you are probably already following. So he's an American oral maxillofacial surgeon. He actually spoke at the DIA meeting, but for the longest time, he didn't identify himself other than as the Bloody Tooth Guy. And his work is very, very recognizable on Instagram. He posts a lot of really incredible oral surgery content that's very recognizable, but he's also built a brand for himself, not only by his Instagram handle, but through his logo, as you can see, and he's built merchandise with the hashtag BTG that he's created for the Bloody Tooth Guy. So he's branded himself through his handle, his bio, his logo, and his hashtags, and also the content that he's producing. Another example of somebody who's drawing on their individual interests to brand themselves on social media is the dental yogis. So this is a husband and wife team. They're both dentists and they're also both certified yoga instructors. So they post a lot of content both on the topic of dentistry, but also on yoga. So this is a way for them to target they have a broader reach, so they can target more prospective patients other than if they were just specifically marketing themselves as only dentists. And it's more interesting and exciting. And so they post content that's more likely to sustain and attract attention from a broader community on Instagram compared to if they were just showing dental content alone. So when it comes to branding, it's about showing the human being behind the dentist and all these hashtags that you're using. So show what makes you unique. Show your face, talk about your interests, talk about your experience, and try to tie it all together using fun, humor, and creativity. Now, when it comes to actually creating business off of Instagram, it's really through fostering meaningful engagement. And the main ways to do this are through the direct message feature of Instagram, through the comment section, by tagging other relevant accounts, by utilizing the story as much as you can, and also taking advantage of the explore page. So as we all know, Instagram has the DM or direct message section, which is really where you should be trying to communicate with people or prospective patients or other people in the dental community that can then lead to actual real business interactions or patient interactions. So whenever you make a post on Instagram, I would always encourage you to tell your target audience to reach out to you through the DMs. Say, DM me with any further questions, or DM me if you want to learn more about the topic in this post, or DM me to set up your appointment now. And then respond to them right away and foster those relationships. And then that is how you can translate who you're meeting on Instagram into a real life business relationship. Using the DM section is always also a very powerful way to meet dental mentors within the industry. So some of my personal mentors that I've met both in real life and through Instagram are Dr. Paresh Shah, who's a Winnipeg-based general dentist and one of the senior members of the Seattle Study Club here in Canada. He's a mentor to so many people across Canada. He posts so much inspirational, helpful content for young dentists. So I would encourage everybody to start following him and interact with him through social media. Somebody else who's done a really great job of mentoring the younger generation of dentists is Dr. Rob Ritter, who's a Palm Beach, Florida-based general dentist, and he's very accomplished. He's a member of the AACD, AAED, and many other groups and faculties. Again, he posts a lot of helpful content for the younger generation, especially on Instagram. So make sure to follow him and reach out to him. And there's also Dr. Tony Manito, the Smile Professor. So he's a professor at the University of Charleston in South Carolina. And he posts a lot of really helpful information, not just about clinical dentistry, but how to build yourself as a dentist straight out of school. So find people like this on Instagram and don't be afraid to reach out to them through the comment section or through the direct message section. So when it goes to commenting, I would encourage you to comment on as many relevant posts as possible within your target audience. So this is a post made by Dr. Goth Siu fairly recently. So just keep the comments, they don't have to be super in-depth, but reach out with questions, post discussion topics, or just even it's easy like couple emojis or something like that. Just interact with them, because the more you post comments on other people's content, the more likely you are to attract and sustain attention towards your own page, so you can drive traffic towards your own content by doing this. And again, on the topic of commenting, I would encourage you with every post that you make to prompt your followers to comment on your content with further questions or discussion topics, and that will facilitate the comment section as well. You can also tag up to 20 or more accounts for every Instagram post that you make. So whenever you post something on Instagram, try to tag other relevant accounts that will help drive traffic towards your page. So I vary it based on the type of content that I'm posting, but when I post a EMAX veneer case, for example, I'm going to be tagging all of the experts in EMAX veneers across Canada, people like Jason, people like Gordon, people like Goth, people like Effie, people like Nada. But if you want to broaden your reach, I would encourage you to consider tagging people from maybe other industries outside of dentistry, so that you're able to target other potential followers that you may not have been able to access otherwise. And we'll talk about that a little bit more later on. But the key message here is to tag as many other accounts in every post that you make as possible. The story feature is also a really powerful one for fostering meaningful engagement on Instagram. So as we all know, the story is a 24-hour upload that's not permanent, although you can save it on your page permanently. But what I like about the stories is that it's a really great way to create conversation right away. So whenever you make a story, I would encourage you to take advantage of the ask me a question prompt or the surveys or the polls that you can run. Post your location, tag other accounts, use hashtags. And what's easy about the story is that it's not really a high commitment post. It goes away after 24 hours. So you don't have to put a ton of time and effort into it, although some people do. But it's a great way to stay connected and stay interacting with your target audience just throughout the day whenever you have a few minutes available, maybe between patients. I would also encourage you to interact with other people when they've posted a story. So Instagram will make it very easy for you to respond to them with an emoji, or you can type something more thorough. But the main thing here is to interact with as many relevant accounts as you can from the story, because again, that will drive traffic towards your page. Now, the Instagram story king of dentistry, and I'm sure I'm not alone when I think this, is Dr. Phil Walton. He's a Toronto periodontist, and he posts quite frequently on his feed, but he posts probably more than anybody on his story, and it's really valuable content on his treatment planning and case design and clinical considerations. And he also posts a lot of polls, so he's very interactive by prompting his followers and other users to chime in on what they would have done for a certain case. So he's made it very easy and desirable for other people to want to interact with him and follow him and engage with his content. So I would encourage you to follow him and see how he's posting his stories, and that might inspire you and give you some ideas on how to use the story feature as advantageously as possible. And then lastly, you have the Explore page. So the Explore page is your home page on Instagram, and it's curated for you based on what Instagram thinks your interests are based on the types of accounts you're following and interacting with, or perhaps the hashtags you're using or following. So when you look at the bottom left where the arrow is pointing to that little search button, you can look up specific hashtags to see how popular or widely used they are. So for example, when we look up hashtag Emacs, you can see that there's over 450,000 posts with this hashtag. So it's obviously very widely used, and it can capture a lot of attention. So when you're trying to think of the type of hashtags that you should be using or following, search them on the Explore page and look and see how popular and how widely used they are. And that could be an indication of how much traffic they could drive towards your page. And that could then increase your followers and increase the number of meaningful interactions you have, which then could lead to actual business opportunities or new patients, etc. Now, on the topic of hashtags, I would encourage you to have a mix of popular hashtags and maybe less widely used hashtags for every post that you make, because if there's over 450,000 pictures associated with hashtag Emacs, for example, it's very easy for your post to get lost in the shuffle. So you want to have posts that have hashtags that have widespread use, and also some that have less use, so that you might be able to stand out more amongst those hashtags as well. Now, the next thing I would encourage you to do is think about ways that you can collaborate across industries outside of dentistry. So think about your colleagues in the medical field, perhaps pediatricians or family doctors that you can find on Instagram, and think of ways that you can both help each other promote and tap into your respective followings to boost your own following as well. A lot of people in dentistry reach out to local dermatologists or plastic surgeons because they're going to have a very similar demographic that they're trying to target. Consider things like makeup artists, people in the fashion industry, either designers or photographers. So be creative and think about other industries that you can collaborate with. And I would encourage you to try to find people locally that can actually help you drive patients through your door. So some examples recently through the COVID-19 shutdown, there's been some really great Instagram live conversations between dentists and people in the medical field. So for example, we saw Dr. Effie Habshaw did an Instagram live with Dr. Philip Solomon, who is a very popular Toronto plastic surgeon. So they were able to tap into each other's following and cross promote each other so that both of them may be able to get more patients from their respective followings as a result. Just last week, Dr. Nada Albatish did another Instagram live conversation with her friend who's a Toronto dermatologist. So again, they were able to cross promote each other and perhaps tap into each other's patient base and following so that they might be able to get patients out of each other's as well. Somebody who did this really well earlier this year is Stephanie, who is a Calgary-based dental assistant. She's actually the assistant to Dr. Gordon Chi, and she partnered up with a local fashion and jewelry brand. So she promoted them on Instagram, and vice versa, they promoted her. So she was able to broaden her reach and access a whole demographic of potential followers that she may not have had access to otherwise. Within the beauty and makeup industry on Instagram, we see these happen all the time where they do these giveaway alerts. So a handful of influencers will get together, create some sort of a prize, and each of them will make a post on their page whereby they tell their followers that in order to win this prize, they need to go and follow the other influencers involved and tag, let's say, 3 to 5 friends in the comment section. So what that's going to do is that it's going to dramatically increase each of their following counts and also dramatically increase the level of engagement that they're having because they're getting a ton of comment action in the comment section, but also they're going to be, the accounts that are tagged in the comment section are going to be more likely to then look at the initial account and interact and engage with their content. So think about ways that you can use this type of a promotion or something similar to boost your following outside of dentistry alone. Now, within dentistry, I know there's a lot of perfectionism, which I can relate to myself. I'm very much a perfectionist. So this can be a huge barrier to posting consistent content because often what I hear is that a lot of dentists are hesitant to post because they don't feel like their content is as good as it can be now. So they'd rather not post right away, but wait until they perfect it in their own mind and then post it later on. But this is a huge mistake, and I can't stress this enough. Consistency is much more important than perfection when it comes to social media. Obviously, you want to strive for high quality content, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. But the most important thing is that you are posting consistently. What do I mean by consistently? Ideally, every single day you should be making a post of some kind. It doesn't have to be an incredible full arch rehab or anything like that. Just post something so that you're staying engaged and relevant and you're in the conversation. I realize that during our normal day-to-day life, this may not be realistic. We have a million responsibilities, particularly in the dental office. So what I think is a realistic goal for most people is 3 posts per week. However, at the very minimum, if you can't even do this, try to post at least once a week on a consistent basis, because this will keep you engaging with your followers and your other target audience members at least somewhat consistently, so you can maintain that interaction. You're not going to lose a ton of followers if you're not posting. But if you do wait several weeks or even months between posts, you can lose a lot of attention, you can lose following, and you're going to lose some of that momentum and engagement that you've already started building. So try at the minimum for 1 post a week, ideally every day, but I would encourage 3 times a week. And no matter what, try to use the story feature daily. This does not take a lot of time, and it doesn't mean that you necessarily have to post every day on your story, although I would encourage you to do so, but at least think about interacting with other people's stories so that you can then spark that conversation in the DM section that could then potentially lead to a new opportunity for you. Now, something else for those of you in the audience who might be principal dentists already, think about the people you have in the dental office already who can help you become better at social media. So you may have staff, you may have assistants, office managers, hygienists, you might have students who are shadowing you. Try to empower them to use their proficiency in social media to help you get established as a dentist and to help establish your practice on social media. Give them access to your social media account so that they can start creating content, or ask them for help as a coach to help you create content, create hashtags, write your captions, etc. We also have sales reps who come into the office all the time, like myself, many of whom are starting to get more and more active on social media. So whenever you're using a specific product, for example, from Ivoclar, tag your local rep from Ivoclar, and then perhaps they will repost you or engage with that content and help promote you. So it's really collaborative, and think about the people you have in your life already who can help you. A really profound example of this is a project that I was involved in at Christmas time of 2019. This was an idea from Dr. Goth Siu, who I mentioned earlier in the presentation, and he wanted to do a campaign, a charitable campaign for an organization called Transforming Faces. So this is for children who are born in the third world with cleft lip and palate, and so it provides them with access to care and surgeries. And so he partnered up with some members of his referral group, so a periodontist and an orthodontist office, and he did this campaign. So he came to me and he said, I have this idea, everybody's on board, it's going to engage our patients, it's going to do something great for the community, but I don't really have the time or the resources or the skills to create an actual video to promote this on social media, so can you help us? So I was able to find a local videographer, an editor. I actually got in as like the fake patient, as you'll see. I'm like a actor. And so we worked together to not only create this content, but then when we actually went to promote it, I was helpful in promoting it as well to my following. So it was able to have a broader reach. So this is what the end result was.
This holiday season, we are running a Donate a Smile campaign. We're all about creating smile, and now you can do it as well.
If you love your smile, share it. Every time someone shares their smile in a story or a post, tag us, and we'll donate $3 to Transforming Faces. Transforming Faces provides surgery to patients that are born with cleft lip and palate. I personally was born with a cleft lip and palate, which happens 1 in 700.
Smiling is contagious, and now you can help someone smile that's never had a chance.
If you are a patient of ours, share your smile and we'll donate double. Let's help everyone smile this winter.
So again, think about the people you have in your office already, whether they're your assistants, your staff members, your reps, and really work with them and collaborate with them to think outside of the box to promote each other on social media. Now, if you are a recent graduate or a dental student, market yourself to become the social media expert for the dental office. You can use this, as I mentioned earlier, as a marketable skill. You can say, I have this understanding of how to use Instagram and Facebook and Twitter and TikTok. So if you were to hire me, this is what I can bring to the table on top of my educational and clinical experience. And that, I think, can be very advantageous for you in the job market. And then my last piece of advice is to create high quality content. And this really starts with upping your photography skills. So many dentists will tell you that becoming a better photographer makes you a better dentist because you're able to see your work at a much higher level of resolution and detail. But if you're taking all these photographs for your work, from treatment planning and case design and case documentation, why not then use this content to promote yourself on social media as well? So the two people that I would encourage everybody to follow in Canada, who are really the experts on dental photography and videography, are ones that I've already mentioned in this presentation, Dr. Gordon Shi in Calgary and Dr. Jason Adinata here in Toronto. Also consider the captions that you're posting to make them as easy to read, digest, and sustain attention as possible. So this is a post by Dr. Nada Albatish recently following an Instagram live I did with her on a bulimia case that she had recently done for her patient. So she wanted to do a post where she recapped what we talked about, and there was a lot of information in that Instagram live. So what I like about her caption is that she broke it down into small little bursts, small little paragraphs. She used a lot of emojis. So it was very easy for users to get through and digest and take the key points away from, compared to if she had just put a huge paragraph of just pure text, which nobody would probably want to read through or remember as easily. So think about how you're setting up your caption. Make it short and sweet and concise. Use emojis where you can. Keep the grammar and the spelling as accurate as possible, and make it easy to read and digest so that you're going to sustain and capture the attention of as many people in your target audience as possible. Also think about how you're aligning your page to make it as visually appealing as you can. On the left, we see Dr. Brian Harris. So in the middle, you can see he has a full row of his before and after smile dentistry. And then on the left and the right, he has a focus on people. On the right, we see Dr. Gordon Chi's second Instagram account. So in the middle, you can see he has a whole row of just words that encapsulate his brand. And on the left and the right are columns with his dental and photography work. So it's really easy to look at and navigate, and it's going to be much more likely to sustain attention compared to somebody who just had kind of a blurb of random photos that aren't really aligned or set up in a way that's easy to navigate and a way that's organized. What I recently have started doing is I have 3 different columns. So in the first column, I focus on products and educational events. In the second column, I post dentistry. And then the third column, I post things that have to do with me. So this is where I'm really branding myself and showing my face. And what I like about the way that I've done this now is that it makes me sure of what I'm posting and how frequently I'm posting that type of content. So it keeps everything varied. So I know that every third post is going to be dentistry, every second post is going to be product, etc. So it keeps everything fresh and varied and easy to navigate for people coming onto my page for the first time. So in summary, the number one thing that I have to tell you is to overcome your social media anxiety. Before you start posting content, really consider who is your target audience and what are you trying to achieve? And is your content really relevant to that audience? And then think about ways you can build your brand by using your own unique characteristics and personality and humor, and also creativity. Consider ways to foster meaningful engagement through the comment section, the direct message feature, the stories, and the explore page. Think about other industries in your local area that you can collaborate with to promote each other and expand your reach. Always remember that consistency is much more important than perfection. Utilize your staff, reps, and students as a social media resource within the dental office. And if you are a student or recent grad, market yourself as a resource to potential principal dentists as a social media expert that can help promote the office using these platforms. And lastly, work on creating higher quality content through your photography, through your captions, and also your alignment of your page. Let's just go quickly through some do's and don'ts before we wrap up. Definitely do post constant and high quality content. Use relevant hashtags and geotags. Engage through the comment section, the story feature, and direct messages. And stay consistent with your brand and audience. Always consider, what am I trying to achieve with this particular content? Don't prioritize perfection. We already talked about that. Try also not to focus on the vanity metrics, such as the number of followers or likes that you get. It's very easy to purchase fake accounts to be followers or to like or comment on your content. But again, does that actually achieve what you're trying to achieve? Or is it just something to boost your own ego? Rather, I would encourage you to focus on those 8 points that I previously mentioned, and you'll notice that the likes and the number of followers will grow organically. And to me, this is a much more powerful tool for growth as a dentist. Also, do not fake it. We've talked about this already. Nobody expects you at this stage of your career to be an expert in dentistry and social media or any of it. Rather, focus on the process. Be real, be open and vulnerable, and talk about times in your life where things might not have been so perfect or easy, because it will only make your interaction that much more strong and powerful. And also try not to appeal to all audiences. If you want to have more of a dental focus and more of a just friends and family focus, that's fine, but create separate accounts and create your content for each audience accordingly. And most of all, just have fun with it, be creative. This personally has made my job so much more enjoyable. I enjoy the creativity of content creation. And it's also been great because I've been able to make all these connections around the world in dentistry who've become really great friends in a lot of cases. So it makes my job very fun and very enjoyable. So I would encourage you to look at it as something that makes dentistry all that much more enjoyable. Some additional resources for you. Definitely follow Gordon Chi at Aesthetic Dental Studio. He was scheduled to do a series of lectures on dental photography across Canada. I had the opportunity to attend one of them when I was in Calgary, and it was really a phenomenal lecture. He is an accomplished photographer outside of the dental studio, a dental office, as well as in the dental office. So he has a lot to teach us, and he's a great resource. On the topic of dental photography, I would also encourage you to follow Miladinov Milos. So he's a Romanian dental technician and photographer, and he posts a lot of great content on this topic. He's a speaker globally on this topic, and he also has a book that you can check out. There's also Dr. Miguel Ortiz. So he's a Boston-based prosthodontist and photographer. Again, he posts a lot of really helpful information. He has a book as well called Lit on the simple protocols of dental photography in the social media age. Also check out Course Karma. So this is a platform that was started by a recent grad from Canada, Dr. Ali Bhatia, and it's a place where dentists can provide reviews of continuing education and courses. So it's an opportunity for peer-to-peer mentorship and collaboration and engagement. So you'll find a lot of helpful information of the dental community on here, and it's a great resource, especially as a recent grad, to learn about the world of CE and dentistry and determine what kind of courses you want to take and you feel you should invest in. There's also the newbie dentist, who I think he's watching today. I know Dr. Shergan was recently a guest on his podcast, but definitely follow him and check out his podcast. He has such great guests, sometimes on this topic as well. And then lastly, if you haven't already read Crushing It by Gary Vaynerchuk, definitely do so. And also follow him on his podcast, The Gary V Audio Experience. I've gotten so many precious gems on information when it comes to social media marketing from him. It's all free, so definitely check him out. And at this point, if there's any questions, let me know. Thank you.